T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
This is episode 488 on the 28th of February 2022, the final episode of February 2022, as February 2022 and 2 months of 2022 come to an end with over 60 days over. Just 305 days remain to the end of 2022. But more on that later. Let's discuss something even more interesting. What's the first word when the term all rounder comes in your mind? The term all rounder has been associated with a certain sport, and we have earmarked certain players who are the top all rounders in the game. Though the association and why we think those individuals are the top all rounders is not because they had the potential or they were good, but because of certain emotional reasons that we associated the term all rounder with them or gave them that high wealth status, because that's the way the human mind thinks. But when one talks about an all rounder, what does it mean? Of course, the pseudo experts say he or she is a bowling all rounder or a batting all rounder. But if you ask me, I don't believe in such terms. If you can bat and bowl, you should bat and bowl unless you have injuries, especially around the knee area or the shoulder area where you think you cannot bat and bowl. But if you're good enough in this particular sport, if you are good enough and if you can bat and bowl, it doesn't matter whether you are a bowler who can bat or a batter who can bowl or a combination of both, whether you come in number 7 or whether you're opening the batting or whatever your position is as per the demands of the team. And it doesn't matter whether it's 20 overs, 50 overs, 5 days, 4 days, pink ball, red ball, yellow ball, green ball, maroon colored ball, whatever be the color of the ball. If you're good enough, you should play all the three, that is 20 overs, 50 overs, and 5 days. But to simplify it, in this sport, all rounder is someone who can bat, contribute with the bat, that is making 40, 50 runs needed, bowl, take 2 or 3 wickets. You cannot do both all the time, but you're expected to do it and field, take a few catches. In other sports, in sports like hockey and football, someone who can be an attacker, be a defender, and be a midfielder who can perform all three roles, who can quarterback for the team, is an all rounder. Though in sports like football, hockey, rugby, the term all rounder isn't used, and the term all rounder is often used loosely because it's not a formal term, because we tend to give everyone the nomenclature of an all rounder. There are a few individuals who don't even deserve it. But the advantage of an all rounder, whether it's a term which is official, unofficial, or otherwise, they perform all the roles with elan and they add more depth to the teams. They are multitaskers. In the sport of hockey, there's Harmanpreet Singh, who is a very good penalty corner specialist. At the same time, he's a defender, but if needed, he can be in the opposition's circle D and he can attack if needed. So it's the need of the hour, and it's not to separate the two terms, but that's the way things are. So, who are the potential all rounders? Well, of course, we can talk about the women's team all rounders. I'll mention them as we go further. Let's look at one domain right now. So, in terms of all rounders, yes, in the year 2021, there is a certain kind of hesitancy. If this was 15, 20, 25 years ago, we would have been more open, we would have been more excited about who is an all-rounder, because now we have created such standards. Well, substandard individuals have created standards for individuals who have more standards than the substandard individuals who have created standards. And that's the paradox. But for me, Jadeja, Aksar, Sundar, Huda, Ashwin, Kunal Pandya, and if there are any other, if you can tell me, are the current all-rounders who can contribute bat, bowl, field, wherever you want. They are in the spinning category. In the fast bowling category, you have Venkatesh Iyer, Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Harshal Patel, and there are a few others who will emerge as soon as they get a position in the senior team, couple of them from the junior teams, the junior World Cup performances. But one thing that has baffled me, and one thing that the selectors have not been clear about. The irony is that the chairperson of the selectors also calls himself an all rounder. And interestingly, majority of the team of the 70s, 80s, that era were all rounders. That is from Mohinder Amarnath, who could bat and bowl, to Madan Lal, to Roger Binney. Then it was acceptable. It was fine to do that. Now we are so hesitant. We are so rigid about such things. Batting all rounder, bowling all rounder. The only reason we use terms such as batting all rounder and bowling all rounder is because the pseudo experts themselves know we could never contribute. And therefore, we are going to use these terms because that's one way to get away from all the controversy. Well, it has added to the controversy. And the most interesting thing is that the team and the selectors continue to ignore Hardik Pandya. Of course, he's injured. He was part of the World Cup, then he was injured. Then one doesn't know how his rehabilitation is going. There's some kind of ego clash between the selectors and the player himself. They don't want him in the team. He doesn't want to do work that hard to be part of the team. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's the discussion. I would want him in the team, even if he could be on stretcher, or even if he could be on one leg. I would have him as a part of the team. Even if he doesn't play, I would still have him as a part of the team. That's the most important thing in this. And that's something we have to shed. That's the most important thing we have to understand. But the next big thing, 6 years ago, this particular individual was the next big thing, and now he's relegated to the back of the line. This is how you look at things, this is how you treat individuals. We were looking at him when he came as a 22-year-old in the team. Wow, he will solve all the problems. He will go on to play for another 10 years, and he will solve all the problems that are there. So once upon a time, the next big thing was the next big thing is now relegated to the back of the line. That's the attitude we have. That's something. It's not just the selectors. It's the way the media has responded to this situation, which really baffles me. And it's difficult to make a head or tail out of this. It's difficult to put anything in context as far as this individual is concerned. Of course, his contributions were going skyrocketing once upon a time. Then, of course, he got a little bit injured and his injury became the focus. Everyone said he gets injured frequently, whether it's the back or whether it's one or the quad or whatever injuries can happen to a player. And now he's relegated to the back of the line. That's the part that really baffles me. How do these things happen? That is something that I don't even understand. But that's the way things are. We are looking beyond him. Okay, that's fair enough. But let me give you another example, another parallel story to a certain Hardik Pandya. Once upon a time, there was a Mitchell Marsh. He was also the next big thing. He had injuries. The Australian Cricket Board said, go back, rehabilitate yourself, get away from injuries, and you'll be given a chance. And then what happens in the 20 over World Cup? This guy is given more responsibility. In fact, he is part of the test team which is traveling to our neighboring country. Though this guy, in an ideal world, has not played the 5-day game for a while. But Australia trusts Mitchell Marsh despite his injuries issues. They have a 22-year-old Cameron Green who's also beginning to put himself in that category of doing a good job as far as in fast bowling all-rounder is concerned. And they trust Mitchell Marsh more than they trust Pandya. And that's the attitude. And that just baffles me. But then Pandya himself hasn't made things easy with his cavalier attitude, because it's a cavalier attitude. He's not been vocal that I want to be back and things like that. Maybe sometimes you don't have to be vocal about such situations, and that's baffling, but that's the way things work. And that's what really makes it more interesting. And then let me give you another example. In New Zealand, there are two players, Daryl Mitchell and Colin the Grandhome. Not your ideal proper all rounders. Bowlers who can bat or batters who can bowl, you can figure that out on your own. So Daryl Mitchell became the opener because New Zealand didn't have too many opening options in the 20 over World Championship, and he did well. He took the team to the finals with his batting in the semi-finals. He didn't bowl much. In fact, he bowled 1 over or maybe 2 out of 5 matches did he get a chance to bowl, but he was part of the team. Whether he was a makeshift opener, a temporary opener, or whatever the thought process was as far as this particular team is concerned and their understanding is concerned, he was given an opportunity. And then he was drafted into the 5-day team because New Zealand didn't have too many options with a couple of their players either injured or retired, and they were given a chance. There's another guy called Colin the Grandhome. He's 35 and a half. He is only used when New Zealand needs 5 bowlers. He's not your regular bowler. He'll be the last person New Zealand will give a chance to bowl, and yet he's there. He's been in and out of the team. Injuries have been plaguing him, but New Zealand trusts a Daryl Mitchell and a Colin the Grandhome more, just as Australia trusts the Mitchell Marsh, who all of them have had injury issues. None of them are your frontline 5-day all-rounders, but they trust him more than the Indian Cricket Board, the Indian Selection Committee, the Indian team management trusts Pandya, because Pandya was injured last time somewhere in November, December, and there is no clarity on whether has he recovered, whether he's getting into that zone of recovery back into the team. The selectors don't think he's He has done enough to guarantee their trust, and that's the most important thing. I would have had him in the team. I wouldn't have cared whether he's injured or not. Of course, you have the likes of Venkateshwar Iyer, Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Harshal Patel. But yes, the thing is, no one knows which 21, 22 individual will travel to Australia for the 20 over World Cup. Who are going to be the lucky 21, 22? No one knows. There is no concrete team right now. It's too early to select a team. Maybe by the end of September, we'll know who are the individuals traveling, because you have to announce a team a month earlier. You also have to announce the reserves who will travel, and then of course you have to also announce if anyone gets infected, who will replace them. Apart from the reserves, around 21 to 22 people, and of course performances in the private tournaments also make a difference. But I'll talk on that later on. But there's another kind of all-rounder, not in the world of sports, but in the world of talk shows and entertainment. Is that possible? Can there be an all-rounder in the world of entertainment? Only if you think there can be. So what does that include? It includes an individual who prepares the script, that is the content part, who does the pre and post production, that is makes sure that the presentation that is coming on for the content is visually appealing. The background music has all the elements of making it interesting. Post production means the marketing part, it's sent to the right individuals who understand the theme and anchor. Well, if you can anchor, if you can write the content, if you can be a pre and post production marvel, and you can market it to the right place, you have a rare talent. And for that, of course, you need time, you need experience. Though a few individuals will say if it's better to have different individuals for different domains. That also works, but then there's too much of coordination, too many cooks spoiling the broth. But when you can do, it's like a individual who can direct, write, produce, and act in the movie. That's a very small percentage. It's almost 10 out of a million individuals in the world of entertainment, TV shows, movies, whatever you may want to call it, who can write, direct, produce, and also act. It takes a lot of toll, but that's the fun part. So, how many individuals can anchor a show, write the script that is prepared, the content, do the pre and post production part, and of course, market and make sure that you have the right PR. It takes a lot of effort, but I would call this individual an all rounder. And who better to take inspiration from than your host of this talk show? Because I have, for the past 4 years, written the script, done the pre and post production, done the marketing part, and of course, I have anchored each and every episode. It's a rare talent. It is not recognized, but it's a rare talent, and 1 out of 1,000 can perform all roles with distinction, and they won't complain that it's taking a toll on me. I'm not able to get the theme out. I'm not able to get the correct way to market it. It takes time, but it's better if you do it on your own, because teamwork is good, but sometimes in coordination, will it work? Do you want somebody shouting in your ear with the earphones? Okay, don't say this. Now go to a break. Now talk about this subject. No, you don't want that. I don't want anybody saying in my ear, now let's do that. Of course, someone can give you basic instruction, but if you have been given the trust, you can anchor and create the content, then you should have the wherewithal to control that particular programming. And if you can do that, if you don't have somebody saying in your ear, okay, nobody wants end anything abruptly. When I see panel discussions and all such things end abruptly, I know that the anchor, moderator, whatever be the terminology, is not in control of that particular programming. You have someone else through the microphone in the pros production booth shouting in their ears, now let's go to a break. And now let's talk about this aspect. Now let's go into a break and also let the audience see this particular video while we arrange for the next episode or whatever next program. And that's something something which is difficult, and I don't want to ever do that. I will control the content as per my need. It's a rare talent, and very few can perform this role with distinction. And who is the best in the world? I leave it for the audience to figure it out. But moving on to the two games between India and Sri Lanka in the T20 Cup, in the second game, India chased 180 in 20 overs. In 17 and a half overs, India chased down 183. It was a good chase, and of course, it was led by Shreyas Iyer, who was batting at number three. As I said, there are no fixed positions. And that's the most important thing we have to understand. There are no fixed positions. Anybody can bat at any place. And then, of course, since when we say number three for the past 10 years, we've been saying Virat Kohli at number three, but that's a position which can not go on forever. It's nothing to do with the age part. Anyone can bat at number three. I could have Shardul Thakur at batting at number three, change the status quo. I've seen teams do all this, and of course, but let me throw in a word of caution. While India did win the tournament 3-0 and they have won 12 in a row, it's become a case of peak versus career, as it was once upon a time for another individual. I would throw in a word of caution for this particular tournament or for the preparation they are doing for the World Cup. Let's not get carried away. Of course, when you win, it's good. But even for the preparation of the last year's World Cup, when you were preparing for it, you were beating teams left, right, and center, and we thought we were well prepared. And then we all know what happened in the first two games, which was exactly the kind of thing that was not needed. Yes, of course, preparation is always good, but then you can prepare with 1,000 test papers for your exams, or you can play 20, 25 games, and then you can have 25 to 30 people ready, out of which only 21 can go, or you can have 30 to 40 ready, out of which only 20 can go, and 10 will be saying, well, we tried, but the selectors had something else in mind. I would throw in a word of caution as far as this tournament is concerned, because we don't know what will happen when that tournament arrives. Forget things like condition and pitch and size of the ground. That's irrelevant. It will be more about who will be the right 11 to fit. Even I can't predict. So let's not get, yes, winning both the matches is good, and giving option to the team management and the selection committee is good. Now all they have to do is play a game of Russian roulette, pun intended, and just pick up whoever is there. It's nothing less than auction. They will have to pick up 20 out of the 30 players ready, who are going to be there, who is needed for that particular tournament. What do the selectors have in mind? Is there synchronization between the selectors and the team management, that is the captain and the coach? That's for them to find out. So I think there is never a coordination between the two. But yes, we went on to win both of them, with the architect of all three matches being Shreyas Iyer. Will he be part of the team? What position will he bat in are going to be the $1 million question, which Everyone is trying to find out, but nobody has been able to pinpoint. Even I don't know. I can't predict 10 months or 8 months ago. Anything is possible. Injuries, issues. Maybe Shreyas Iyer doesn't score a run in the next tournament he plays, whether it's 5 days, 50 overs, and everyone will say, what was that? Was that a fluke? Or suddenly Kohli comes in, hits 450s in 4 matches, he's ready. Pant comes in whenever he gets a chance, hits 51. And that's something which will have to be taken into consideration. A word of caution, let's not get carried away with such performances, because every time this happens, by the time you reach the actual tournament, you may lose steam, you may lose gas. So one has to be careful before celebrating such tournaments, because these tournaments get the players needed, get 30 to 35 players ready, but only 20 can go, 50 will always be crying foul. That's the nature of the sport. Talking about the nature of the sport, how many times do you toggle between two incredible teams, two incredible sports? I was toggling between the India-Spain match and the India-Sri Lanka match. How many times do you toggle? Well, I was toggling. And while the India-Sri Lanka match may have seemed one-sided, with one side dominating and the other side trying to keep up the pace, the hockey match was a classic. Both the hockey matches were classics. The two of the greatest games ever played, and I'll say it. Well, the coach may not be happy because eventually it was a one-all situation. India beat Spain 5-4 in that magical moment of winning the game in its second by scoring a penalty stroke, kept its dominant position in the Pro Hockey League Championship. Spain answered back with 5-3. And then, of course, when these things happen, the coach is a little unhappy because once again, Spain were ahead in the match. India answered back with a couple of goals. Spain once again took lead, but it did not turn out to be a deja vu of Saturday's game where India sneaked from 1-3 to 5-4. Doesn't happen often. I'm not disappointed. For me, these were two classic games. Of course, a lot of super experts may not agree with that, but I'm not really concerned about whether they agree with that. That's not my concern. When I say two of the best hockey games played, and one can question this tournament, but I think this tournament has, unlike the cricket tournament, this tournament is a great preparation for the World Cup, because in hockey you don't care
It's $10.
which part of the world you play in. Minor things like the size of the pitch, the ground, really doesn't matter. And this is all about gaining points. Of course, India is already at number 3 as far as the rankings are concerned, though they can be fluctuated. They can be fluctuating most of the times. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But yes, overall, two of the best hockey games played. It may end up at 1-all. One can say that India erred by giving too many goals, but that's the nature of the sport. You give a goal, you concede a goal, then you score a goal. The fast pace with which the team moves, I'm sure once upon a time in the medieval era, even those medieval players wouldn't have been able to respond with such power. So this ends episode number 488 on the 28th of February 2022, the final episode of February 2022 as we enter the last 9 months, the final 9 months of 2022. And stay tuned for the next episode. And I will be back with episode number 489 on the 2nd of March 2022. So, what should you do while you wait for the next episode? Put these legendary books in your must read books column. Once again, put these legendary books in your must read books column.